big stories. After more than 6 years behind bars, former Senator Leila de Lima is granted bail. How did they do it? We'll speak to one of her lawyers, attorney Tony Lavinia, about the defense that they laid out.
What does Justice Secretary Boying Remulla have to say about de Lima being set free? We'll speak with DOJ Spokesperson and Assistant Secretary Mico Clavano about the case, as well as what they're doing to defend our rights in the West Philippine Sea.
And despite geopolitical tensions, the Philippine Economic Zone Authority, or PEZA, says that it is seeing sustained growth and investments from Chinese investors. Exactly what are they investing in here? We'll be speaking to PEZA Director General Teresito Panga about this later on.
Welcome to the show. I'm Regina.
I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Shawn.
Thank you. Thank you. Pumasok kainin tonight. Ito na kainin natin tonight. Ma'am.
That was a clip of a very emotional former Senator Leila de Lima when the Muntinlupa Regional Trial Court announced that it is allowing her to post bail for her final drug case. She's now one step closer to freedom after almost 7 years in detention.
De Lima was released after Judge Teresito granted her bail in the amount of 300,000 pesos. Her co-accused former Bucor Director Franklin Bukayo, former aides Ronnie Dayan and Jonel Sanchez, and alleged bagman Jose Adrian Dera were also allowed to post bail. De Lima faced 3 drug charges in total, 2 of which have already been dismissed. She has been in detention at Camp Crame since 2017. De Lima got even more emotional when welcomed by a crowd of supporters outside the court.
That's where she said, alam niyo po, napakasakit ang makulong ka nang wala kang kasalanan at ayaw ko pong mangyari ito sa iba. But I don't want to be sad or bitter today. This is the moment of triumphant joy and also Thanksgiving. De Lima also held a press briefing earlier tonight, and here is part of what she said.
I never lost faith that my inevitable freedom will come. Alam niyong lahat kung gaano tayo katagal naghintay ng nagtiis, na may pananalig na ang katotohanan at totoong hustisya ay magtatagumpay. But the counting of the years, the months, days, hours, minutes, seconds, the milestones in my own life, in my family's life, and in our nation's history that I have missed by being unjustly detained cannot be counted. None of those can fully express how much and how long I have longed to be able to say the words, finally, the truth has set me free. Yes, it's always the truth. It's always for the truth. And that's why I'm now set free.
2,054 days. She actually counted in that press conference the number of days she's been in prison. At sabi niya, hindi daw niya ma-describe yung feeling na finally ito na nga. Pero gusto niya, matagal niya na gustong sabihin na finally, the truth has set me free. But this is just
But she's not actually free.
Hindi pa.
Yeah, bail pa lang. No? Pero again,
But
ilang
almost
beses
there.
din siyang na-deny ng
Almost
bail.
there,
Right?
yeah.
Okay, basahin natin yung parte no, nung decision na yon. It goes like this. Thus, assessing the totality of the evidence presented by the prosecution, the court is of the firm view and so holds that accused De Lima, Bukayo, Dayan, Sanchez, and Dera should be allowed to post bail as the prosecution was not able to discharge its burden of establishing that the guilt of the said accused is strong. Thus, the order of the court dated June 7, 2023 is reconsidered. Of course, maaalala natin, no, nung umupo si Presidente Duterte noong 2016, just a little while later, nagyari ito. She was, of course, very staunch in criticizing the drug war of former President
Even before
Duterte.
Duterte became president, let's,
During
just
the
to point that out,
campaign,
beginning from when Duterte was mayor of Davao, and it spans more than 20 plus
2009.
years.
2009.
Yes,
Kasi nga siya
De Lima
yung
had been on her.
Yeah.
on his case about the drugs.
That's right. And she was always, I think, back then, no, with the human rights
Oh, yes, that's
issues.
right.
So it was part of her job to criticize the former
But
president.
when the former president was already in power, and when she was senator in 2016, that's when she opened the inquiry into Duterte's anti-narcotics campaign. And a year later, she was already imprisoned.
Yes.
And
It
it's just, she went
happened
through
very
so-
quickly.
Yeah, and she went through so much in there. I mean, remember that hostage crisis? Na-hostage pa siya sa loob ng krami.
Well, she is accused, of course, of enabling the drug trade inside the Bilibid prison and accused of using that to fund her senatorial campaign in
And what's
2016.
changed in the last year or so is that one by one,
Recantations.
correct, the star witnesses have recanted their statements.
But did you take a look at the decision of the judge? Ang ginamit niyang words is, the prosecution was not able to establish that guilt of accused is strong. Didn't even reach yung parang guilt beyond reasonable doubt.
In fact, she already had two cases dismissed. She is facing multiple cases. Hindi lang po isa yung kaso ni De Lima. 3. So may isa pang natitira. This is the current case that she has posted bail for.
But yun nga, everyone is saying that case will also likely be dropped now that the burden of proof is
With the prosecution.
The prosecution hasn't been able to fulfill that burden of proof, right? That there is enough evidence there to connect her to the crimes inside Bilibid.
You know what else is interesting is that she actually thanked President Bongbong Marcos and his administration for this.
Of course, I would too.
Yes, but of course, like, if you look at the political lines, right?
Of course, they're on different political lines, but do we really believe that she would have been set free if it did not have the imprint of the president, right? If it did not have
Ano
the...
nga ba sinabi niya? Sinabi niya, gusto ko pong pasalamatan, syempre, ang aking legal defense team for all their sacrifice, hard work, dedication, commitment to fight for my causes. At pinapasalamatan ko rin po si Honorable Judge Hener sa kanyang katapatan sa batas at hustisya. At gusto ko rin po pasalamatan ng BBM administration for respecting the independence of the judiciary and the rule of law.
There you go.
That's what she said.
Siyempre, sobrang daming nag-react on social media. But let's get some reactions now from some politicians to today's big news. Former Senator Sonny Trillanes said that this is the biggest step in De Lima's quest for justice and redemption. He adds that, quote, the whole world will now know how Duterte misused and abused power to persecute those who dared stand up to his murderous regime. Former Vice President Leni Robredo says this decision proves that the accusations against De Lima had no basis. She says she is happy that justice prevailed and that this is a win not only for De Lima, but for the entire country. Another ally, Senator Risa Ontiveros, shared former Vice President Robredo's sentiments.
Sobrang laking vindication ito para kay Sen Leila at para sa buong oposisyon. Si Sen Leila na miyembro ng oposisyon na pinaka-sumalo ng pinakamalalakas na dagok mula sa Administrasyong Duterte. Si Sen Leila na nag-labor sa ilalim ng 3 walang kakwenta-kwentang kaso at kailangang hintayin na isa-isang mag-recant yung mga di umanong saksi laban sa kanya.
Various international organizations like Human Rights Watch cheered the news as well. In a statement, it said that she never should have been unjustly prosecuted and detained by Duterte, whose administration concocted evidence and used the machinery of an abusive state to punish her.
Reactions now from the other side. Senator Bato de la Rosa, the architect of Duterte's drug war, said he respects the court's decision, but he believes the case against De Lima was never weak.
I respect court decisions, as I always also observe separation of powers. So, respetuhin natin kung anong decision ng korte. I cannot really say with certainty na mahina yung kaso. Because it withstood the time of President Duterte's term, di ba? He is worthy to be bailed, to be granted bail. Always na talagang billable yung kaso niya. Dapat noon pa binigay the bail yan, di ba?
Former Duterte spokesperson Roces says he also respects the ruling. He said, quote, "We may disagree, but we need to respect the decision of the court."
All right, we're going to take a quick break for now. Right after that, what does the Justice Department have to say about today's verdict on former Senator De Lima? We will be speaking to DOJ spokesperson Mico Clavano right after this. Stay with us.
Welcome back. You're still watching The Big Story here on One News.
Okay, circling back to our top story, and here to talk to us about former Senator Leila De Lima, we have in studio the Department of Justice spokesperson Mico Clavano. ASEC, thanks for coming all this way here to talk to us on this very big news day. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Of course, the big news of the day is Senator Leila De Lima being granted bail after more than 6 years. May we have Justice Remulla's reaction to this, please?
Yeah, he actually had a press conference earlier today where he said that it's proof that the justice system is working, that the democracy is vibrant and alive. We see that there are obviously two sides to the coin. Some people are happy, some people are not. But us in the department, we came into the department already with the case there. So as to how the evidence was collected, as to why the case was filed, that's really not any of our worries. The only thing that we wanted to do when coming in was to give the prosecutors, the panel of prosecutors, that prosecutorial independence that they deserve, because they were the ones that came up with the case, they did the case build up, they gathered the evidence, and they should be the ones to prosecute it. So the secretary just gave them that respect to continue the case, but we are indifferent to the way it turned out. Obviously, we want to encourage our prosecutors to do what they believe is best. So that's pretty much the statement he had this afternoon.
Can you confirm that DOJ under Secretary Remulla was hands-off with this case?
Yes, definitely. Obviously, they would brief him, but at the end of every meeting, he would just say, just do what you think is best.
Okay, it did take 7 years though. So in terms of the reforms that you're talking about, can we perhaps in the future see cases being resolved a lot faster than that? I mean, considering how high profile and politically charged this case was.
Well, in the case, especially of Senator De Lima, as I reviewed some of the records coming into the administration, there were a lot of delaying tactics on both sides, actually. On the prosecutorial side, they did ask for some resets because of the lack of evidence or the unavailability of the witnesses. But the same can be said of the side of De Lima. There were multiple times where she asked for the rescheduling of the hearing. Well, mostly during the pandemic when she was unavailable. So, there were delays on both sides. And I think that's really the way cases work. If both sides aren't amenable to moving fast with the case, you'll really see that the case can be prolonged. But there are also a lot of cases you'll see where if the issues are very straightforward, the evidence, the prosecutors are very fast in presenting the evidence, you'll see that maybe in 2-3 years, the case is done with all the motions for reconsideration and all the remedies being exhausted. It could be done very fast. It's just that in this case, there were quite a lot of delaying tactics on both sides.
Well, there's a perception that there's been a change in the way that this administration has been handling the case. Do you think that's true? Has there been a shift in the way you treated this case compared to the past administration, of course?
Well, like we said, the case was already there when we came in. So we did not help in preparing the evidence, the theory of the case, the issues to be threshed out in court. So whether there was a change in attitude or a change of tone, I'd say the change of administration is that change. There's really, I always tell people, it's not about the politics in our heads, because obviously we have no idea why that case was there, the evidence, how it was gathered. There's a whole thought process that goes into it, and we weren't there for that. Like right now, for example, there's a reform where the prosecutors and the police are asked to work together so that the prosecutors could lead the picking and choosing of the evidence so that we could come up with a solid case. And that's very important. That process at the start is very important for you to establish the theory of the case. And we weren't there for that. So we just really left it to the prosecutors to pursue and to do what's best. So I guess yes and no. We came in not having anything to do with any of the politics, but at the same time, the prosecutors who were there from the beginning pursued the case the best way they could.
All right. Well, of course, as we know, former Senator De Lima was incarcerated for the alleged drug trade inside the Bilibid prison. Up to now, we've already changed administrations, and we're still being hounded by that drug war. Of course, your department is not exempt from it. Recently, of course, it would seem that the Secretary of Justice has changed his tune with regard to letting the ICC come in. Of course, he didn't actually say that. People just read into his statements when he said, use the words, "I will study the proposal." What can we expect on that front? Should we expect that we will see the ICC on Philippine shores anytime soon?
Right, thanks for asking. It allows me to clarify the statement of the Secretary. Well, on the part of the Department of Justice, there is no change of tune. We believe that there is a working justice system, and the jurisdiction of the ICC will only come in when there is no justice system in a certain country or a particular country. And this is often seen in countries in Africa where there's complete anarchy, complete chaos, and no working government or administration that could even start to address the grievances of the people. Here, we have the Supreme Court, we have the DILG, the police, the AFP, prosecutors all around the country. You have verdicts like the one today where people laud the independence of the judge. And we believe that on the ground of complementarity, the ICC doesn't have the power to come in to a working justice system and replace it completely. So on that side, we're completely consistent with the way we express ourselves before. The only reason why the Secretary mentioned that he would study the proposal of Congress was because when the Congress speaks, it's as if the people of the Philippines speak. These are all representatives of people from around the country. They all represent certain districts and certain sectors of our community. So when they speak, you can assume that this is the voice of the people. And he said that in the context of certain congressmen and even the speaker possibly opening their minds to it. So that is the only time that he said he will study that proposal, because when a co-equal branch of government speaks, you have to listen. But as far as the Department of Justice is concerned right now, there's no change of tune.
Okay.
There's been a lot of recantations the past years when it comes to the case of Laila de Lima. What does the DOJ plan to do about that? Do they plan to go after those who have recanted, Ronnie Dayan, Rafael Ragos, Kerwin Espinosa, And does the DOJ plan to investigate on those who they allegedly or who allegedly coerced them into making those testimonies?
Well, the department has always been and will always be evidence-based. So if there's evidence to show that certain statements were perjured, meaning to say that they were made falsely or they were made to mislead certain people, then of course we will have to pursue. That's our job. It's our mandate to do so. But if there's no evidence, then there's no case to pursue as well. We don't want to insist or force something that's not there. So it's really all about finding the evidence. If ever we see that there was also coercion on the side of anybody to force certain people to say things against their will, then that itself is also a case.
So to put it simply, somebody will have to approach you guys first with something, either a complaint or evidence.
Well, they did already mention in their recantation that they were coerced before. So it's a matter of investigating and seeing how true that is. Ronnie Dayan, I believe, and former Director General Ragos mentioned that they were intimidated into saying certain things in their affidavits. So it's up to them also to substantiate that. Because if there was no coercion, if there was no intimidation, then obviously the only case left is perjury. Because without any intimidation and you have conflicting statements, obviously one of them has to be false.
Yeah. But you know what the various international groups like Human Rights Watch have been saying is that the Duterte administration concocted evidence, right? I'm not going to ask you to comment on what they supposedly did. That won't be fair. But what I'm going to ask you is how is the Marcos administration under Justice Remulla going to ensure that it doesn't happen, that cases like this don't happen, right?
Well, we have what is called the case build-up rule, which I mentioned briefly a while ago. And this is a mechanism by which the law enforcement agencies, as well as our prosecutors who have the legal knowledge, it's a mechanism where they work together. So from the very get-go, at the scene of the crime, the prosecutors will already be there, which is a very far cry from what it was before, where prosecutors would sit in their rooms and wait for the evidence to come brought by law enforcement agencies who may or may not have legal background. So most of the time, or a lot of the times, weak cases are filed because at the scene of the crime or where the crime happens, the evidence chosen or the witness taken are not actually necessary, relevant, or strong. So to have the prosecutor there at the very start is very important for a legal system because they're the ones that have stake in the conviction later on in the case.
That would also lessen these instances of not correct procedure was followed, etc., and those things. Because a lot of cases that look or might be valid, they also get dropped like that. Some procedural lapses and stuff. So that new rule in place will help to cut off those kinds of issues now and in the future.
Yes, absolutely. And that's really the purpose. No? There's more of a check and balance. And like I mentioned, the prosecutors, their success is measured by the number of convictions they have. So they don't want cases to be dismissed, especially on a matter of technicality.
Yeah. With this, can we expect this to last beyond this administration?
Yeah, well, the reforms that we're having, obviously, any groundbreaking reform like this, where the prosecutor's job is essentially changed, or the nature of their job is essentially changed from a passive one to an active one, is hard to introduce at the start. But once the prosecutors embrace this change, we believe that it's something that could last over and beyond our administration because we believe that they will see the importance and they will see the change that it brings to our legal landscape.
Yeah.
Words na ginamit nung judge about the Limas case. The prosecution was unable to establish that the guilt of accused is strong. So, with
In
those
layman.
words, malapit na bang matapos ito?
Well, I think the timeline of the case is very different from a ruling on the motion for bail. When you say there's an application for bail and the judge rules on it, at the very early stage, actually at any stage of the case, you can file that application for bail, and the judge has to rule it because there's a motion pending before his sala or before his court. And so, in this case, for example, as of this moment, this is what it's saying, as of this moment in the case, given the prosecution's evidence at hand right now, they were not able to discharge their duty or their burden to establish that the evidence of guilt is strong. But the case continues.
Oh, okay.
And I'm sorry I can't go deeper into that because that would be sub judice. But that's what it means. Like right now, that's how the case stands.
And then just very quickly, Aztec, before we let you go, we're running out of time, but we wanted to ask you for any updates on the West Philippine C case. There was a time when we were talking about filing charges against China. Is that even happening? Over the coral reef damage, right?
There were there was a meeting between legal luminaries, especially those experts in the maritime law and environmental law, in the person of ex-Justice Francis Hardalesa, Tony Oposa, representatives from the DOTR, as well as from civil society organizations, and they are exploring the universe of cases that we can file against China. Their actions was met with very little thought of how the consequences could affect generations even after ours. The corals that were destroyed these are crimes against humanity. So this is not just about the territorial dispute, although we will not let up on our territorial dispute, but it is something that we want to show to the world that, the Philippines is not going to take this sitting down.
Where are you planning to file that case? Which court?
There are still a lot of options on the table, but of course the PCA, where we got a favorable ruling before, is always top of mind.
Okay, so Permanent Court of Arbitration.
You're going to have to update us when and if that happens. We'll leave that there for now. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Department of Justice spokesman, Assistant Secretary Mico Clavano. President Marcos has named the first president and CEO of Maharlika Investment Corporation. The government has also released the revised rules for the MIF, which, among others, remove additional qualifications for directors of the fund. Marisol Halili has the details.
Rafael Jr. has been appointed by President Marcos as the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Maharlika Investment Corporation, which will manage Maharlika Investment Fund, or MIF. Consing is currently the Executive Director of the Office of the Presidential Advisor on Investment and Economic Affairs. He also served as Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer of the private company International Container Terminal Services Incorporated, or ICTSI. Consing's appointment was announced just a few days after Malacanang released the revised Implementing Rules and Regulations, or IRR, of the Maharlika Investment Fund. Under the new IRR, the government removes additional qualifications for directors of the MIC. The old rules say that regular and independent directors must at least have a master's degree. They also remove the qualifications of a minimum of 10 years of professional experience in the field of finance, investments, economics, and related fields, as well as the required strong track record and commitment to the highest ethical standards. Also, under the revised IRR, the President has the power to approve or reject nominees of the advisory body for vacant positions. The original IRR only stated that the advisory board for nominees should be submitted to the Office of the President within 30 days after the release of the rules. One economist sees no problem with this move.
Yung appointment, nagagaling po sa executive, pero pagkatapos po nun, pag magpa-function na sila, independent sila. So nandoon naman po yung check and balances na tinatawag.
Albay Representative Joey Salceda also believes that Consing was an excellent choice for President and CEO of the MIC. Salceda was head of the technical working group that tackled the Maharlika Investment Fund Act.
Isa sa pinaka-excellent choice po ng Presidente at I'm sure na siya po may sapat na experience at kilala sa buong mundo. 32 countries po ang ICTSI, siya po ang CFO. Ang dami niya pong award sa pagiging Chief Financial Officer. Pero ang nag-number one, yung walang masters. Si Joel Consing, kilala ko po yan at nakatrabaho na rin.
The revised IRR also removed specific functions and membership of the Maharlika Investment Corporation's Audit Committee. It also removed the provision that explains specific functions of the Risk Management Committee. Before the IRR was suspended, State Banks, Land Bank of the Philippines, and Development Bank of the Philippines have already remitted 50 billion and 25 billion respectively as initial capital of the MIF. A longtime banker points out that the general banking law states that the equity investment should not exceed 25% of the net worth of a universal bank, something he said is clear in the new IRR.
The money contribution of Land Bank and DBP will be transferred to their account in Treasury. At that point, it's still a deposit nila. Such investment needs the prior approval of the Monetary Board of the BSP. In which case, kung hindi nila i-stagger yan, if they send it to the BSP for approval, the BSP can only approve the equity investment na hindi magsosobra sa 25% of their equity.
For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
Something like that. Another quick break for now. Right after that, will PEZA reach its investment goal for the year? We will be finding out from PEZA Director General Teresito Panga himself when we return. Stay with us.
Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here on One News.
Approved investments by the Philippine Economic Zone Authority, or PEZA, rose more than threefold from January to October this year. Now that takes us to a little over 131 billion pesos in investments so far, with almost 30,000 new jobs expected to be created from these ventures. And here to speak with us about this, we have PEZA Director General Teresito Panga. Good evening. Welcome to the big story.
Hi, good evening. Good evening.
All right, tell us more about the projects in the pipeline. I mean, where will all of these investments go?
Well, right now, we have already achieved 85% of our target investment. So at 131 billion, we're looking at 154 billion as our target for the year. So we're short of some 20 billion. But the remaining quarter of the year, we're confident that we will achieve our target, probably even surpass our 154 billion pesos. And as we speak, we continue to approve projects. Some are big-ticket projects. And we have 3 more board meetings to go. And as usual, the top sources of investments for PEZA are those coming from electronics, of course, the IT, the metals, and transport because of the EV.
May mga hahabol pa na deals by the end of the year. Usually it quietens down towards the end of the year, right?
Well, in our case, there's going to be a board meeting this week and 2 more in December. So we're quite confident that we will be achieving our target and approving more projects for the year.
DG Teo, just to give us an idea, what we can look forward to in terms of these big ticket investments. Can you give us some concrete examples of how long pa do we have to wait until we see these investments come to fruition and start operations?
Okay, so usually a proponent applies a project with us. By the time that they will file their application, they are quite certain already in terms of implementing the project. So usually upon approval of the board, they're given within 30 days to sign their registration agreement. And so the gestation is a bit faster when it comes to PESA projects. So they start with investing in the land, and usually when they apply their application, they would have lease contracts already or contracts for the purchase of the land. So yeah, so that one, once they sign their registration agreement, they put up their buildings and start hiring people and start commercial operations.
Which areas show the largest potentials for growth? Saan po ba yung investments naka-sentro
Well,
ngayon?
sa ngayon, it's really manufacturing and IT services as our bread and butter.
Meaning like BPOs?
BPO, yes, knowledge-based, and some are into frontier technologies, the likes of fintech,
Saan pong
blockchain.
areas? Saan pong areas yung
Well,
economic
it's
zones?
scattered all over. We have 422 economic zones operating nationwide. But if it's IT centers, predominantly they are located in Metro Manila. We have about 150 economic zones in Metro Manila, and then 80 manufacturing economic zones. So it's pretty much scattered all over the country.
So ganun pa rin na, DG, no? Yung mga iba kasi, when you say ang daming economic zones, minsan kasi isang building yung economic zone eh. Diba? You can register your building as under PEZA.
Yes.
To get benefits for
Right,
the
right.
investors. Is that tuloy-tuloy pa rin? That's still applicable until now?
Well, yes. That's what we call vertical ecozones, the IT centers, because this would be the ideal locations for IT services. You don't expect to see them in manufacturing economic zones. So the ideal locations would be the metropolis, like Metro Manila. We have a huge concentration of IT projects in Cebu, in Bacolod, in Iloilo. So the prime cities are ideal locations for
Yung
IT
mga
centers.
POGO zone, yung ba economic zone, ano bang, parang how is that affected?
Yeah, I'd like to correct
economic
that
zones?
impression by some, because some might think that we are into POGOs and
I
casinos.
think it's
We do
regulated
not
by
register.
PAGCOR.
Yeah, it's
Hindi
regulated
siya
by
PEZA.
PAGCOR alone.
So doon sa mga economic zones, wala doon yung mga POGO sites, o meron din?
Well, yes. Before, there were POGOs operating in IT centers. Because
Kasi
they're
IT
not
rin sila.
precluded from hosting also mga POGOs. But we do not register in PESA. We only register the IT-enabled activities that are not into gaming or casinos.
About a month ago, you put out a press release saying that you're confident, you're positive that more Chinese investors will choose the Philippines as their next investment destination. I wonder if you could talk us through that. Who are these and what are they putting their money in?
Well, yes. I mentioned that the Taiwanese, the mainland Chinese are among our best bets for the year. And it's showing already in the projects that we have registered by far. Like Panwa, which happens to be our biggest Chinese investor, is into integrated steel. So some are into construction materials. We have Chinese companies that are also into food processing, metalworks, metal fabrication. So we're getting more because many companies are opting to relocate out of China. And some of these are mainland Chinese because they're looking at the Philippines as their hub for exports to US and
And
Europe.
all of that happening even with what's happening over the West Philippine Sea, even with the geopolitics.
noise,
Isn't it affected by that?
Well, it's a cause for concern, but in our case, because we do investment promotion, so we really target companies that would have potentials in locating in the Philippines for offshore operations. So in the case of Chinese, we can be their ideal investment hub and manufacturing at that. Because when they operate out of the Philippines and export to, say, US and Europe, they're able to enjoy GSP+. So this is a privilege if you locate in the Philippines. Among ASEAN, if you export to Europe, it's only in the Philippines that companies are able to enjoy zero duty on their exports. So precisely, the Chinese, not just the mainland Chinese, but some multinational corporations operating out of China and are shifting out production into ASEAN, they're looking at the Philippines as their hub for not just exports to US and Europe, but also intra-ASEAN.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, DG Teo, of course, we all know that President Bongbong Marcos is always going abroad to promote the Philippines as an investment destination. Do you get some of these referrals, perhaps, from his foreign trips and his junkets abroad to promote the Philippines as an investment destination? May napupunta ba sa PEZA?
Well, yes, yes. In fact, we have submitted reports on that. And as an investment promotion agency, we take the cue from our president. He's by far the most active president promoting the Philippines to global investors. And in our case, we do the follow-through. Like last week, we were in Dubai to conduct investment promotions for Emirati investors. And not long ago, the president was also in the Middle East to meet with GCC because it was a GCC plus ASEAN summit.
The Gulf Coordination,
Yes.
Coordinating Council.
Yes. So as a result of that, there is now a heightened interest by GCC investors to look at the Philippines as their hub also in the region. So with our mission in Dubai, for example, we were able to get DP World. So they're one of the world's leading operators. They have a big investment in the Philippines through their partnership with ATI. And more than just port operations, they're now looking at investing in industrial parks, which they have done in UK, in Africa, in other countries. And they're telling us that they want to do the same for the Philippines.
So what you're saying is we are reaping the benefits of all these trips.
Well, yes.
That's something I would like to hear as a Filipino because syempre lagi nababati ko si PBBM for going abroad all the time. I think he's bound to leave again soon.
Yes.
Right?
Tomorrow, actually.
Yeah, tomorrow, right.
But
so
the question is whether we're getting anything out of it.
Well,
and that's
definitely,
what we're always
definitely.
curious to know. Yeah.
In fact, we don't have to tie it up to the travels of the presidents. In fact, all the investments that are coming in may be attributed to the incumbent president because of the strong economic fundamentals. He's the best promoter for the Philippines. So as a result, we're able to attract investments as well into the country. And more so that the Philippines has the highest GDP growth forecast for the year and next year, which makes us one of the best performing economies in the region.
Apart from that, though, DG, of course, we all know that some of our ASEAN neighbors are also very attractive investment destinations.
Great point, yeah.
They're very good competitors. What would you say makes the Philippines more appealing to investors as opposed to, for example, Thailand or Vietnam?
Case in point, Vietnam.
Case in point,
which is
Vietnam.
apparently, according to the manufacturers industry group, SAP, labor costs are more competitive there.
Yes.
Electricity is cheaper. What makes us stand out?
Well, investors would usually look at cost of doing business as well as ease of doing business. On the cost of doing business, it might be a bit higher in the Philippines, but somehow we're able to compensate because of the fiscal incentives that we offer. But I think the real edge of the Philippines over other competitors in ASEAN is our ease of doing business and our Filipino workers. And this is why, despite the cost of doing business a bit higher in the Philippines, especially on the cost of power, they still prefer to be in the Philippines because of the huge Filipino workforce, the talent pool, highly skilled, English proficient, work quality oriented, and there's a higher productivity with their operations in the Philippines compared to other countries.
Okay, I'm also curious, of course, new investments are always good. What about the existing locators here in the Philippines that have been enjoying, PESA perks and benefits for a while now? Have there been any interest in expanding their current businesses within other PESA zones around the country?
Well, yes, because if you look at our records, most of our locators are really here for the long haul. So to be relevant in the market, they will have to continue to innovate. And they do all the innovation R&D, production of new lines in the Philippines. And in fact, 60% of our investments are from reinvestments from existing locators. So they're the ones expanding, and because their experience is so good in the Philippines for the longest time for some already, they're able to attract as well their suppliers to consider the Philippines, to co-locate with them so that they can readily provide for all the requirements of our existing locators.
There was a bill filed in the House, I believe, to create a special economic zone in Bulacan.
Yes.
Which the President vetoed. How is that going? And also, just very curious about where economic zones can thrive. Kasi si Bulacan also recently voted against being a highly urbanized city.
Okay.
So your thoughts on that?
Well, the Bulacan airport was supposed to be a legislated economic zone. So it was endorsed by Congress to the President, but unfortunately it was vetoed. So they have two options, either to refile it, or the other option is to apply it with PEZA. Instead of going through legislation, it will go through presidential proclamation. So both options are available to the proponent. And it doesn't have to be whether you're in a third-class, fourth-class municipality, where all LGUs may actually initiate their own economic zone. It can be public initiated, or it can be private sector led. But of the 422 economic zones of PESA, majority of these are private sector led. In fact, out of 422, only 17 are by public entities.
You mentioned that most of your locators are in the IT BPM industry. I'm just wondering how much of a threat or opportunity you think AI is. Because it was the other day I saw a chart on the Financial Times that showed clearly that generative AI was already taking away white-collar jobs in the online freelancing world. That was literally their headline, right? So may nakita ka you can see once ChatGPT was introduced, there was a really drop in the number of available jobs. I was wondering how you saw that.
Well, it's a cause for concern. And I think economists will have to embrace this technology on AI. And in our case, being a developing economy, we really have to prepare for it, introduce some skills upgrade, because we're looking at particularly the voice sector that will be most affected. But you know, other than the voice, we're also into non-voice. There's a lot of knowledge-based companies already operating in the Philippines. So I think we can harness that as our strength so that we can level up and attract the higher value type of IT activities.
So there's really a urgent need to upskill at the moment.
Well, yes.
Well, that has been what they have been saying for
Yeah,
many years
even,
now. So
even
I guess
the IT BPM industry
Correct.
was saying.
But it's good to see that it's still growing despite all the
the
challenges,
sustained
right?
growth.
Yeah, it's 10% annual growth. There was already report by IT sector, and we're happy that they're still doing well despite the headwinds affecting our economy.
And then
And
did you
before-
just
yeah.
very quickly,
before we let you go, I was going to ask.
apparently you have an important event.
This month, what is it about? Is it about more investments coming in? Can you tell us more about your event this month?
It's going to happen on November 22. So it's our annual Investors Day, where we recognize the top performers, our locators, in the areas of exports, creation of jobs, environmental performance, community development projects. So we expect about 4,000 CEOs from our locators to grace this event, and where we expect also some government officials to join us in gracing this event.
Isa po yung event?
This will be at the World Trade Center.
Okay.
Baka ikaw crash daw ni Gretchen.
Punta daw si Gretchen.
Pwede ako mag-host.
Gusto daw niya i-crash kahit na hindi siya CEO of a locator. All right,
Of course, you're all invited.
we're gonna have to leave that there. Thank you so much for joining us, PEZA Director General Teresito Panga.
Okay, another quick break for now, but right after that, we will be taking a look at the conclusion of this year's Toyota Gazoo Racing VS Cup. More on that when the big story returns. Keep it here.
Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here on One News.
Racing fans experienced one of the tightest and most exciting races during the third and final leg of the Toyota Gazoo Racing Vios Cup 2023 held in Clark, Pampanga on Sunday. With the remaining podium places worth double the points. This time around, the season trophies for both the circuit and autocross events were definitely up for grabs. Kicking the competition off was the Autocross Challenge, which was made faster and more technical for Leg 3. The circuit races were also turned up a notch as most of the competitors vie for the remaining podium positions for the year. And there was also a new Grand Prix format.
Everything's been different from the last time I was here. The set, the staff, the competition's much higher this time around. So it took me a lot of adjusting to get to their level, but now that I'm here, it's been amazing.
Racing has helped me improve as a driver, especially when it comes to the discipline on the road. You'd think na racing, you'd be faster, like you think about speed, but really it's more of the discipline and the techniques that you can apply and use on the road for your daily city driving.
Of course, one of the main highlights of the event were not just the races itself. Toyota also proudly showcases efforts in achieving carbon neutrality as it showed off its next-generation Tamarao concept as a safety car. Built on IMV0 platform, the next-generation Tamarao uses eco-friendly powertrains. This was followed by the Corolla Altis GRS electric hybrid racer, which was seen in the previous leg.
By bringing in a hybrid vehicle into the races, we are able to show that this vehicle is as equally tough and reliable and also more efficient than a lot of the other vehicles. So it is very much aligned to our goal of promoting carbon neutrality.
All right, before we go, time now for our big picture tonight. You know, the weather has been pretty good in the past week, but here is a satellite track from PEZA of tropical depression off of Mindanao. Though it's still outside the Philippine area of responsibility, it will be named Kabayan once it crosses into the PAR. And though it is still a tropical depression with winds of up to 5 or 55 kmh, as you can see in this forecast, Kabayan is expected to strengthen into a typhoon and is likely to make landfall in the Samar or Leyte area on Saturday, November 18th. So let's all prepare and be ready for a rainy weekend with Kabayan.
Alam mo, kanina pa ako nakikinig ng balita eh. Akala ko ano nangyari kay Noli De Castro.
Literal.
Yung pala yung pangalan.
Okay, wait. Before we go, I also have to apologize to our viewers because in our headline tonight, we teased Attorney Tony Lavinia that we're going to be speaking to him tonight off the back of the big news of the Lima getting bail. But unfortunately, we couldn't get through to him because he had a lot of, as understandably, he was pulled into more urgent meetings. So we're going to try to get him tomorrow night. So in exchange for that, I will leave you with the Lima's message to former President Duterte. And she goes, God forgive him and God bless him. That's all I'm going to say for now. I want to say many other things to him, but not tonight. I don't want to be political sounding tonight because this is a moment of joy. So that's what we're going to leave you with tonight. Moment of joy for former Senator De Lima.
God forgive you and God bless you. That's it for the show tonight.
I'm looking forward to hearing what the former president has to say.
Kaya nga, his reaction naman, di ba?
Tune in tomorrow. We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.